So this is your needle keeper. It's a twist on a pin cushion, but it's for your sewing machine needles. And what you'll see is there's a grid on the front here reflecting different types of fabrics which are explained around the edges, and the different types of needles that you might find yourself using, and also the different sizes. And these will make a combination as a serving suggestion of what combination to use for your project. Then the idea afterwards is, say if you've used something like a denim needle in the project and you've used it for a little while but not the full 8 hours of sewing, then you can pop it back into that section there, and you know that when you need to come back to get yourself a needle, you can get one straight there from your denim without going to a brand new needle if it's just a small project. So there you go, that is your needle keeper. Okay, so first of things first, we have our panel, and on your panel you've got your rectangle which we will cut out, and you've also got your instructions down the side here. So it's literally you follow those instructions. So first thing you need to do is to cut out your rectangle. Now this can be done using your scissors. If you prefer, you could use a rotary cutter, and you're just going to cut along the rectangle along all 4 sides. So there we go. Next thing we're going to do is actually fold along that halfway line that you've got here, which is mentioned in your instructions as well. So I'm going to get my cutting mat, and on the reverse of the cutting mat I'm going to spray some adhesive on here. Also going to bring in some protective card to protect my surface as well. And all I'm going to do is to use my 505 and then spray over this half. Just a light spray. And then fold along the line that we've got here. And then fold out those edges so as they all meet up. If you want to at this stage, you can give it a little bit of a press, but you don't have to. So next thing we can do is flip over, and you'll notice that you've got a series of dots and a series of squares. You've also got arrows and a green dotted line. Now these are going to be where you're going to be doing your stitching. So the first thing we need to do is to fold along that green dotted line. So it's between the dots 3 and 3. Okay. You can pin it in place if you're wanting to. If you do pin, then I do suggest you just pin out of the area away from the stitch lines. And all we're going to do now is stitch. So we're going to stitch from dot 1 to dot 2 to dot 3 and then run off, and the same over here, dot 1 to dot 2 to dot 3. You've even got little arrows there to show you that you're going in the right direction. So I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and get those seams sewn. So drop your needle down in point 1 and just sew along to the point. Make sure that you've got your needle down down to point two, come down to point 2, pivot, and then sew towards point 3. Then we can do the same on the other side. So back at the table you can see where I've done my stitching. So I'm just going to remove my pins. Take a pair of scissors and snip away those triangles, leaving about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Next thing I'm going to do is open up the pocket. Almost create a bit of a boat and take those points together. So where you've got those seams, they will come together, and just lock them together whichever way you choose, and then line up the edges there. Again, you might want to pin this. And again on the opposite side. There we go, all come together quite nicely. So just make sure your point 3s are sitting on the seams there. And this time we're going to stitch along where the squares are. But we're not going to go right into the corner like we did before. We're going to start at point 1, or square 1, square 2, square 3, and run off again. And again, just follow the direction of those arrows. So you can see how it starts coming together. If you want, you can poke out those corners gently with something like a knitting needle. And you can see there how it's all starting to take shape. So the next thing you're going to do is we're going to flip it over and we're going to fill it with walnut shells or a filling of your choice. So we're going to fill our needle keeper with, well, it can be a filling of your choice. I've got some crushed walnut shells here, which are often recommended for pin cushions and things like that. So that's what I'm going to use. Funnel is always good. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get the funnel into your needle keeper and get those shells in place. So when you're happy with the firmness of your pin cushion or your needle keeper, it's time to stitch up this area. But what I tend to do is come in with a little bit of the excess cloth fabric that we cut off when we were cutting out earlier on, and I'll take that and I'll pop that just inside to cover up the shells that are closest to the seam. Get to sit relatively flat, and it just makes it a little bit easier, I think, for when it comes to stitching together. And then what I tend to do is just take the thread, pass it through quite a long run, bring it out one of the other seams, and cut the tail away. So there we go. There's our needle keeper. Around the side you've got suggestions of different types of threads. You should always do a combination of needle to fabric and do a little test before you start your main project. But you can see there you've got your pincushion. Obviously if you want to add more, you've got your needle keeper. Obviously if you want to add more shells you can do. So the idea being is you'd have a project, maybe use a denim needle, use that on your project. Rather than popping it back into the case, then you can simply just pop it into here and know that that's a 90 needle, and you can just pop it in there, and then you can pick that up at a later stage when you need to. So the idea is when you're using a needle, for instance this denim needle, I've used it in the project, I don't want to put it back into the packet, so I'm just going to pop it straight in there, and then I've got it ready for when I need to use it next time.